Welcome back to Scale Auto Guys Workbench. Today we're going to be building this 57 Chevy Bel Air Hardtop from Atlantis. Now, I previously did a unboxing video on this particular car kit, and I noted in the video that the original body that came with this car was severely warped, and you can see that in this shot here. I had contacted the folks over at Atlantis and told them, hey, I just got this car and it's really warped, and they asked me for some pictures, and so I sent them some pictures, and they said, well, we have some more of those bodies in stock with no problems with them. Let us send you one. So that's what they did. And let me pull this out here. And as you can see, the body is perfect. So we're going to get started on building this. Alright, fellas, I'm doing the first stages of just clean up and everything, and I'm looking at the direction sheet, and the direction sheet says very first step, door installation. Well, that's all fine and good. I can do that. But it's also saying that I should put the interior door panels, attach them to the doors. The problem is with that, if I attach them to the doors and then put the doors on the car, one, it's going to be hard to paint them to match the rest of the interior. And when I'm painting the body, the overspray will go through the windows, because I never tape off the windows. It'll go through the windows and it's going to get all over the door panels. So that leaves me in a little bit of a quandary. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tilt the camera down here so you can see it a little bit better. You see the hinge mounts to the door panel like this. Then this little piece here goes to, oh, got it the wrong way. Yeah, it goes like that, and so the door will hinge off of that, right? And then this part where this little slot is goes on these two little pieces here. So once I get that door skin and the hinge and everything put in there, I got to glue this in place and clamp it down really tight so that it's nice and tight to the fender. And what that'll do is it'll make sure that the hinge is nice and tight, and so the door won't be all floppy when you open it and close it. What I propose to do is just put the outer door skin on and leave the inner panels where they are right now on the tree, and I'll paint those, and I'll put them on the door skins prior to the final assembly of the body and chassis. So I think that's the best way to do it. That way it's easier to paint the door panels. It's I don't have to worry about overspray from painting the body, and everything will be good to go. So let's get on putting these door panels on, and I got the hood to do, the trunk lid to do, and I'm sure that's coming in the next couple of steps. So let's get busy. Now the question is, should I glue this part to the door first, or should I glue this and, where did that go? Oh, this and this to the body first? Wow, let's see here. I'm reading the directions, and it says to do the door hinge part 1, which is this, to the left and right doors. So it says to glue this to the doors first, then later on you put that on. Let me see something here. Yeah, that'll do it. So, okay. Always got that little ring on there. So I'll just put a little bit of glue. On there, and one little dot there. Let's see if I can get a clamp on that. I don't know if I can or not because of the shape of the door. I know my clamps aren't deep enough. Nope, I'm not going to be able to. If I put it on the outside here, it'll just make that thing sit wrong. And okay, that's one door. This plastic is kind of brittle. Well, there it is. It's very. This is the kind of plastic that I don't care for because it tends to break instead of cut. And especially when it's that close to the edge, I'm not a big fan of that. So let's see if I can trim this up here a little bit. The other door was just as difficult when in this section here where what I'm doing now. It was difficult to trim. Oh, and it has these little push pin marks in it too you got to get rid of. If you don't make sure you got those taken care of now, when comes time to do the door panels, especially with the way I'm doing them, or going to do them, I hope that I don't regret it. But it'll be harder to take care of them later. There we go. Make sure I got that on that one. No, I didn't. I missed that one. All right. I've only done a couple of the cars with the opening doors, and my first one didn't turn out real well because I wasn't really paying attention to making sure that I got the hinges on there right and right and tight, like not to be rhythmic or anything like that, but make sure that I got them on there good and solid. So what ended up happening was when I got it done, the doors, you open them and they would just kind of flop, and because of that, I'm not a big fan of opening doors. But let's see how this goes here. Now this is angled, so you can't mess up. The angle goes towards the fender. The trick would be is to not get any glue on the where the hinge goes. So I'm just going to put just a little bit down in here. Yeah, barely got any in there. That's fine. I got enough. Drop that in place. Yeah, there we go. And then throw a clamp on it. Now I'm going to use my other clamps. They're a little bit, the spring is a little bit tighter in them. There, that should hold that. It's a little floppy. I guess that was part of the deal. Alright, there's that one. And let's get this other side done. Ooh, I still got to cut it free off the tree here. Don't like twisting to tear those off. I like to cut them. I used to be the twist and tear guy, you know, when I was younger. Didn't have little clippers like that to take the parts off the tree. But then again, at that point in my life, I didn't care how much glue I used or what the paint jobs looked like. Anything like that. Alright. Okay. There we go. I'll let that set. Let that set and dry and be on to the next step. Alright fellas, I started to do the engine, and this engine is unlike most kits. As you can see, I have this clamped together. This is 3 separate parts, and it's just the engine block, and the directions are, I won't say vague, but they are a little bit confusing. So you have to, pardon the sloppy paint job. I wasn't really paying attention when I did it. So anyway, besides the sloppy paint job, like I said, this is 3 pieces. So you have this part of the block, this part of the block, and this part of the block. And you have to put these 2 halves together and then glue these 2 parts to this part, and then you have the cylinder heads. Now, the bad part about the way this is set up, there are injector pin marks and pin things all over the place, and there's flash, and it's hard to determine what is what. I see now that there's 2 holes in the back of the cylinder head, and there's these 2 pins, so this one and this one on the end are not necessary. That's extra, superfluous, whatever. But one thing I've noticed about this engine, now if you were to take this engine and say put it in a diorama of sorts, it's very detailed. And what I mean by that is you have lifters in the lifter valley. Your pistons are at various depths in the cylinders. You have a crankshaft. And then when you look at the cylinder heads themselves, you have your rockers for your lifters. And then you flip it over and you have recessed detail in your cylinder heads that you would normally not find in most model kits. So this is a very detailed cylinder head for this engine. So it's kind of unique, and it kind of almost makes me want to not build it. It's very, I don't know, it's very rough though. I mean, there's a catching point there, down here. So this is all has to be sanded, or I like to think of it as it has to be milled. So it's got to be smooth to mate to the block. All those bumps on it aren't going to help it sit down all the way. There you go. That's all smooth now. And need to get rid of those extra pins. They're not, you know, it's, I don't know if you can see it. It's right there. You need this one and this one on each side of the engine block. But these big ones here are not necessary. They get in the way of putting the cylinder head on the block. So let me get all this cleaned up. When I painted this, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Yeah, paint, paint, paint. I wasn't paying attention as close as I should have to the mating surfaces, because I was just thinking, you know, this is just like every other model car engine. You know, you just throw the cylinder heads on, and then the valve covers, and call it a day. I didn't take note of the amount of detail that was involved in this engine block. So let me get these big pins knocked down, and we can get on with the build of this engine. It's kind of unique. I haven't seen one like this in a long time. This really is a gem. It you just don't see these any longer. Okay. Let's see if I can nip it off with these. I don't know why these big pins were on there, other than to push this out of the mold. But usually those aren't pins sticking out like that. They're usually little indentations. And I hope I didn't just screw myself. Okay, and then this side. Like I said, this is as close to the real thing as you're going to get, other than, you know, the real thing has moving parts inside of it. But as far as appearance goes, they don't get much better than this. And I've built a number of engines in my time, so no, it's the right way. There we go. And I'm going to throw another coat of paint on this once I'm done. So it looks terrible right now, but it'll look good when I get it done and painted. But the hardest part for me was figuring out how the top part of this engine block made it to the bottom part, because it was kind of confusing and odd looking, and it took me a little bit to figure it out, to get my head wrapped around it. And now that I have, it's coming together. And I don't know what that is, but it's in my way. Oh, I know what that is. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I didn't get that flush in the front like I should have. Luckily, the glue isn't fully set yet, so I'm able to push that up. This should be flat in the front. I might have to just sand that. There isn't any locating pins per se in there. It's just kind of a raised area underneath this that just, and it has a little lip there that mounts on the side of the bottom part of the block. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, I got to sand off all the paint I put on here. Yay! Not a big deal. Not a big deal at all. Just got to make sure that that's flush, because the water pump assembly goes on there. And if it's not flush, then the water pump's not going to sit on there right. And I can see right now that this side is a little bit lower than the rest of it. Let me get another sanding stick. That one's a little bit too smooth. Yeah, let's try this one. There we go. It's not exactly flush, but it's flush enough. Get to this end here. There we go. I shouldn't have any problems with the water pump now. And this back here, this is a tab for the transmission to mount. And that's right there. There is a considerable amount of flash on this engine that is sufficiently thick enough that it fools you into thinking that it's actually part of the part you're working on, when it actually isn't. And hindsight being 20/20 and all, I should have waited to paint this until I got it put together. Luckily, it's craft paint and it comes off real easily, so. Okay. There we go. Let's get the rest of this engine block put together, and then I will throw another coat of paint on it. We'll let it set. Alright fellas, I'm all set to put the engine together. This is a multi-piece engine, and it's I won't say it's complicated, but there is a little bit added stuff to it. Now you can see I have the engine block and everything all put together and painted. This consisted of let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 6 parts, 7 parts, and that, and the transmission's 3 parts. So it's kind of intense, but not anything more than normal. I have noticed though, there's a lot of ejector pin flash on all of the parts, so be aware of that when you're putting yours together, especially more so on the chrome parts than on the regular styrene parts. So I'm just kind of clearing off some of the paint on the parts where it's going to be glued together. So let's go ahead and get started on this. I've already went through and cleaned off all the chrome where it's going to be glued, cleaned off painted surfaces and that kind of thing, just to kind of speed this process along. Now I do have a couple of reservations about this fuel injection. I'm going with the Corvette fuel injection. There is, in the clamps here is parts. This is the plenum chamber, and that goes on the side of this. The metering valve, which is this little tiny part here, it doesn't really show in the directions, plainly anyway, how this is mounted. I don't know if it goes on, I can't figure out if it goes on sideways, like this, or if it goes on like this. The directions are very unclear. I'm going to do a little reference investigation on this, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. After doing some research, I figured out what side goes where, what goes on what. The side here that has these 2 little ridges, hopefully you see how it's got that little U-shaped ridge right in the center there. That's the side that the metering valve goes on, and the metering valve goes with this little notch back here. Hopefully the camera is focusing on that. This area back here that's got that little notch, that goes down and basically like that on the side of the intake plenum there. So let's go ahead and attach that now so you can see how that goes on there. I did have to, whoop, get back in there, glue. Little air bubble there was pushing out a lot of glue. Just a little dot, that's all I need. I did have to remove, on the other side, there was a ridge right here where the plenum goes, and I had to remove some of that to get that to so yeah, that would sit down in there right. So basically it goes about like that. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp this in place. When that has had a few minutes to set, we'll come back and do the other side. So I'll be right back. Okay, while we're waiting for that to set up, why don't we go ahead and get the valve covers attached and the transmission. I'm gonna just scrape these edges, make sure there's no paint on them, because I did get some paint on them earlier. Sometimes when I'm using these craft paints, I love them for many reasons. They're cheap, they're plentiful, plethora of colors, etc., etc. But when you're using them on styrene, sometimes they don't like to stick very well, and sometimes they don't cover very well, and it requires multiple coats. And that's fine. I'm good with that. You may not like that, but for the amount of paint that I have here at my disposal, I didn't spend that much money on it. I think I spent maybe on average $2 a bottle for a 2-ounce bottle. And so I know model paints are, they're specifically designed for models, and they adhere to the styrene better and all that. I've used them all. I still come back to the craft paints because I don't have to mail order them. The nearest hobby shop to my home is over 50 miles away. And I just don't make that drive. I used to make that drive every day when I was working. But I no longer make that drive because I got tired of being thrown under the bus. So, oh yeah, when you're putting these valve covers on, they do say Chevrolet on them. So you're going to want to make sure that you got the Chevrolet, listen to me, Chevrolet script going the right direction. I don't know, the camera here, it's an old cell phone. It doesn't always want to focus. So I'm just going to put some pressure on that. Okay, that should probably be good. Let's get this other side done. Now, like I said, I cleared the chrome off of the center section of the valve cover, the meat of it. I didn't do the ends because you don't really need to, I guess. I don't feel like I do. Alright, which way has I got the script going? Yep. Just want to make sure I wasn't putting it on upside down. Oh, come on. There we go. Alright, got the valve covers done. Let's check on this intake. Let's see if that's set. Yep, okay, awesome. Yeah, that's good. Now, there's not a whole lot of gluing surface between these two pieces. And it had a big ridge right there, so I sanded it down as much as I could. This goes like this, so you got a lot of piping, whatever, molded in. That goes on the top, and it goes in kind of like that. Now this, on my research pictures, this out here is supposed to be the air filter. So after I get this glued on, I'm going to go ahead and paint that in. So I'm just going to dowel that up with a little bit of glue. And hopefully I've got enough surface here that this will stick and won't fall off in the future. So I'm going to hold this for a moment. Okay, I'm going to set that aside for a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let those parts set up. While I'm doing that, we'll go ahead and attach the transmission. Now this doesn't have any alignment pins and stuff, so you just kind of have to, you know, as long as you get the top of the bell housing lined up with the top of the marks on the block, that'll fit right in there. So let me clear this, just make sure I got a clean surface to glue to. Now the starter, I'm going to go ahead and attach the starter first. It goes in this little hole right here. Again, there we go. Whoops. I got more in there than I thought I got. I'm just going to run a little, oh, wait a second. That's not as smooth as I thought it was going to be. I thought I sanded that. There's an ejector pin flash right there. Just kind of squared up with this. Yeah, there we go. Now it's all set to go. Yeah, it's doing exactly what I was afraid it was going to do. I was afraid that that starter was going to run into some interference with the engine block. It's almost like building the actual, you know, attaching the actual transmission to the actual car. Back when I was 18, 19 years old, I used to work at a transmission shop in Fort Myers, Florida, back before I joined the Navy. I was an R&R man, if you know what that is. I'm the guy that was pulling the transmissions out of the cars and putting them back in. Pulling everything from Ford C4s, C6s, Turbo 350s, Turbo 400s, Torque Flight 727s, everything in between. The average Turbo 350 or 400 or C4, C6, I could have a transmission out of a car and sitting on the rebuilder's workbench in about 15 minutes. After you do it for a while, you develop a system and you are very familiar with what size bolts are where, and you just have your tools ready to go, and yeah, 15 minutes I could have a transmission out of the car and sitting on the workbench. That looks like it's ready to go. And it goes on the manifold like that. Yeah, I quit that job to join the Navy because I wasn't getting paid hardly anything. Working 6 days a week. So I joined the Navy. I don't know that it was any better. Worked a lot harder. But I eventually got to where I was making good money, so I can't really complain. Okay, this little tiny guy is, I believe, representative of the oil filler cap, but has a very short neck on it. It should have been a lot longer, easily twice as long as this, but it goes up here. Unless this is supposed to be the oil filler. I don't know. This is not a very good designed engine. The upper radiator hose, thermostat housing, should have been in that general location. So I don't know. When they designed this engine way back when this mold was new, guessing maybe in the 60s, they didn't do a very good job of the engineering. But then again, back at in that time, that era, modelers weren't as picky. If you could get it kind of close, it was good enough. Oh, sorry for the camera bump. There we go. Yeah, see, this has got a lot of flash on it on the end there. Let's snip that off. Let's clean up that. Stick to the part, not to my finger. Ah. Yeah, so when I tell people I was a mechanic before I joined the Navy, I wasn't really lying. Like I said, I worked in that transmission shop about 2 years. And worked on my own cars over the years as well. Helped out a lot of friends put engines in their cars. I've done a lot of mechanical type stuff on cars. The only thing I haven't rebuilt on a car is a rear axle. I have installed rear axles in cars, but I've not opened one up and changed the gearing or anything. I've rebuilt transmissions and carburetors, alternators, starters. I've done brakes and shocks and exhaust work and a little bit of light body work and tires, brakes. I've done some electrical work. I tend to stay away from electrical work because it can be tricky. Alright, we're almost finished up with this engine, and we got a little bit more work to do on the body. Still have to do the two-tone paint on it. So once we're done here, we'll head back over to the paint booth and let's see what we can get done on that body. And oops, I'm trying to see what I'm doing and you can't see what I'm doing. Alright, let's head over to the paint booth now and we'll get that finished up. See you in a minute. Alright fellas, this video is getting a little long, so I'm going to cut this into two parts. So now you're at the ending of this part one of this 57 Chevy Bel Air Hardtop by Atlantis. Stay tuned. The conclusion of this build will be next week, so if you haven't already subscribed and hit that bell icon, go ahead and do that now so that you won't miss part two and the conclusion of this 57 Chevy build. As always, thanks for watching Scale Out a Guy's Workbench, and I'll see you next week for part two and on the next build.